Justin Baldoni's legal team is receiving pushback over their recent allegations. One day after his lawyers issued a letter accusing his It Ends With Us co-star Blake Lively of trying to force her longtime friend Taylor Swift,
Blake Lively is shutting down rumors after Justin Baldoni's lawyer claimed in a new court filing that Blake threatened Taylor Swift to publicly support her amid the It Ends With Us co-star's ongoing legal battle. Blake's lawyers addressed the allegations, telling E! News in a statement on May 14th, "This is categorically false," adding they, quote, "deny all of these so-called allegations, which are cowardly sourced to supposed anonymous sources and completely untethered from reality."
Put out a public message of support amid their ongoing legal battle. The court is issuing its ruling. According to docs obtained by E! News, U.S. District Judge Louis J. Lemon slams Justin's accusation as, quote, improper, granting Blake's request to have it removed from the case.
In a May 14th court filing obtained by E! News, Justin's lawyer Brian Friedman accused Blake's legal team of demanding that Taylor, quote, release a statement of support for Miss Lively and, quote, intimating if Miss Swift refused to do so, private text messages of a personal nature in Miss Lively's possession would be released.
With Judge Lemon stating in the filing, the sole purpose of the letter is to promote public scandal by advancing inflammatory accusations on information and belief against Lively and her counsel.
Friedman says that a rep for Taylor, quote, addressed these inappropriate and apparently extortionate threats in at least one written communication to Blake's legal team. Friedman states that he wants these messages as they would prove evidence that Blake is allegedly attempting to, quote, intimidate and coerce a percipient witness in this litigation.
It transparently invites a press uproar by suggesting that Lively and her counsel attempted to extort a well-known celebrity. Additionally, Lemon says the letter, which, citing an anonymous source, also accuses Blake of asking Taylor to delete their text messages, is of no use to the court and only serves as a reservoir of libelous statements for press consumption.
This filing comes days after Taylor was subpoenaed by Justin's legal team, claiming the pop star was in attendance during a meeting at Blake's house about the rooftop scene in It Ends With Us. According to alleged text messages in Justin's lawsuit obtained by E! News, he says to Blake, quote, working on the rooftop scene today, I really love what you did.
Closing out his response, the judge warns Justin's legal team that any, quote, future misuse of the court's docket may be met with sanctions. E! News has reached out to Justin's legal team for comment, but hasn't yet heard back.
Taylor Swift's legal team just called out Justin Baldoni, and they didn't hold back. In a blistering new court filing, Swift's powerhouse attorneys are accusing Baldoni of abusing the legal process, using subpoenas like gossip grenades to drag Taylor into a lawsuit she has nothing to do with. According to them, this isn't about justice. It's about headlines. And the judge? He's not amused. This all started with a bitter legal fight between Baldoni and Blake Lively over a movie set gone wrong. But now, somehow, Taylor Swift, who wasn't even part of the cast, is being pulled into the chaos.
And I would have felt that way without Ryan and Taylor. However, Taylor's team reacted to the subpoena, saying she has nothing to do with the case. Telling E! News on May 9th, Taylor Swift never set foot on the set of this movie. She was not involved in any casting or creative decisions. She did not score the film. She never saw an edit or made any notes on the film. The spokesperson noted that Taylor, quote, did not even see It Ends With Us until weeks after its public release.
Baldoni subpoenaed her lawyers, demanded access to private communications, and hinted that Lively was leveraging Swift's name behind the scenes. That alone would have sparked outrage. But what's really setting the courtroom on fire is this. Swift's team just fired back and said this whole thing is a publicity stunt. They're calling the subpoena an abuse of discovery, harassment, and even warned the judge that it could chill other public figures from participating in business deals just because someone else might try to weaponize their name. And that's where it gets dangerous. Because if the judge agrees, Baldoni could face serious sanctions. Fines, restrictions, even a public reprimand that could damage his entire countersuit. But if the court sides with Baldoni, we could be looking at a legal free-for-all where any celebrity's group chat could suddenly become evidence. So what really happened behind the scenes? Why is Baldoni so convinced Swift is tied to this mess? And how did a private dispute over a film spiral into the biggest celebrity courtroom showdown of the year? We're diving deep into the subpoenas, the blowback, the media firestorm, and what happens next.
since she was, quote, traveling around the globe during 2023 and 2024 for her hugely popular The Eras Tour. Ending with, quote, this document subpoena is designed to use Taylor Swift's name to draw public interest by creating tabloid clickbait instead of focusing on the facts of the case. E! News has reached out to Justin's legal team regarding Blake's team's remarks, but has not yet heard back.
Because this isn't just about Taylor Swift, Justin Baldoni, or even Blake Lively. This could change how Hollywood uses the courtroom, for better or worse. Stay with us, because things are about to get even messier. To understand how Taylor Swift got dragged into this wild legal drama, we have to rewind to where it all began. It Ends With Us, the film that was supposed to be a career-defining project for Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. The Colleen Hoover adaptation started filming with high hopes and even higher expectations. Baldoni was directing and co-starring, and Lively was cast as the lead. On paper, it looked like a dream team, but behind the scenes, tensions were simmering. By December 2024, everything exploded. Blake Lively filed a formal harassment complaint with California's Civil Rights Department. She accused Baldoni of creating a toxic, unsafe work environment and claimed she faced retaliation when she pushed back. According to insiders, she wasn't the only one. Rumors swirled that multiple female crew members had raised concerns. Baldoni wasn't about to stay silent. Just days later, he hit back with a scathing statement calling Lively's claims categorically false and deeply offensive. He said the complaint was a smear campaign, one designed to destroy his reputation and tank his production company. But then it escalated even further. In early January 2025, Baldoni filed a $250 million defamation suit, not against Lively, but against the New York Times, which had published a deep dive expose on the set drama. That wasn't enough.
One thing about Taylor Swift's team, they're gonna address something quicker than I can run up and go to the restroom. That's exactly what she did, because she got dragged in some Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni legal drama, and they addressed this so quickly.
Days later, he filed a second lawsuit, this time directly targeting Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Lively's longtime publicist, Leslie Sloan. The figure? A jaw-dropping $400 million. His accusation? That the trio had conspired to ruin his career by planting false stories and threatening to leak personal details unless he backed out of the film. The lawsuits were merged into one blockbuster legal case. Federal Judge Louis Lyman set a trial date for March 2026, giving both parties over a year to dig through discovery, file motions, and prep for war. But just when you thought this Hollywood feud couldn't pull in more names, it did. Because in April, Baldoni's legal team made a move no one saw coming. They subpoenaed Taylor Swift's law firm. And that wasn't a random shot in the dark. According to Baldoni, Taylor had a connection, one that could prove Lively was using her celebrity circle to influence public opinion, manipulate the press, and turn the tide of the case. Was it real evidence, or just an excuse to light up headlines with Taylor's name? That's the question at the heart of the legal firestorm Swift's lawyers are now trying to shut down. It was April 29th when everything shifted. Justin Baldoni's legal team quietly filed a subpoena that sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. They weren't going after just documents or internal emails. No, this one was aimed directly at Venable LLP, the high-powered law firm that has represented Taylor Swift for over a decade.
Recently, Justin Baldoni's attorney subpoenaed Taylor as a witness in the Lively and Baldoni legal case going on.
The move immediately raised eyebrows. Why Taylor? She had no credited role in It Ends With Us. She wasn't on set. She wasn't producing. The only confirmed connection was that one of her songs, My Tears Ricochet, was licensed for a pivotal moment in the film. That's it. But Baldoni's legal team claimed there was more to the story. Much more. In their filing, they alleged that Blake Lively and her camp had actively involved Taylor behind the scenes, using her influence as a media juggernaut to apply pressure. They even floated a theory that Lively weaponized her friendship with Taylor, allegedly threatening to leak private messages unless Swift publicly backed her in the court of public opinion. It was a bold, almost surreal accusation, and one Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, stood by. In court documents, he stated he had reason to believe that communications between Lively, Swift, and Swift's attorneys could reveal attempts to manipulate the case from outside the courtroom. The subpoena demanded extensive documentation. Any communication, from emails to texts, that Venable might have had with Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, or their legal reps. The time window? Wide open. The tone? Aggressive. And the reaction? Swift's legal team didn't hesitate. They fired back within 2 weeks with a full-on motion to quash the subpoena. They didn't just call it excessive.
And they're trying to pull Taylor into this mess whether she likes it or not. And Taylor's team was not having it. They actually gave a statement right as soon as the headline dropped. Her team said the connection Taylor had to this film was permitting the use of one song, My Tears Ricochet, given that her involvement was licensing a song for the film, which 19 other artists also did.
They called it abuse, an attempt to drag a global superstar's name into a case she had no real part in, all for shock value. According to them, Taylor's involvement was being exaggerated, twisted, and used as a courtroom publicity stunt. And here's where things got serious. Because when a federal judge hears the phrase abuse of process, especially coming from a respected firm like Venable, they listen. Now, Baldoni wasn't just facing Blake Lively's legal firepower, he was up against Taylor Swift's lawyers. And in federal court, that's a war you don't start unless you're fully armed. The next few filings would decide whether this subpoena stood or backfired in a very public way. Taylor Swift's legal team didn't just swat the subpoena away, they tore it apart. On May 12th, Venable LLP filed a scorching 22-page motion to quash the entire subpoena. And right from the first line, it was clear. They weren't playing defense. They were going on the attack. Their main argument? This had nothing to do with justice and everything to do with spectacle. The motion claimed Baldoni's demand for private communication between their firm, Blake Lively, and others wasn't about uncovering relevant facts. It was about name-dropping Taylor Swift to generate buzz and intimidate the opposition. They labeled it for what it was, a publicity stunt disguised as discovery.
This document subpoena is designed to use Taylor Swift's name to draw public interest by creating tabloid clickbait instead of focusing on the facts of the case. Her team got a little shady here, which I kind of am here for. It basically said that she was never involved in the creative process of this film.
Let's break down the core of their response. Venable made it crystal clear. Taylor Swift wasn't involved in any capacity beyond allowing her team to license a single song, just like over a dozen other artists. That licensing decision had no bearing on the set dispute. Taylor didn't act in the film, she didn't produce it, and she had no creative control. Yet Baldoni's team wanted to dig into her law firm's inbox. For what? Emails where someone maybe mentioned Taylor's name? Venable argued that complying with the subpoena would set a dangerous precedent. If this kind of fishing expedition is allowed, they warned, then any public figure with the slightest connection to a case could be dragged into courtrooms across the country. It wasn't just burdensome, they called it chilling. Chilling for other artists, chilling for professionals, and chilling for anyone in the entertainment industry trying to do business without worrying about ending up in the middle of someone else's legal drama. And here's where it got even heavier. Venable didn't just ask the judge to quash the subpoena, they hinted at possible sanctions. In legal speak, that means they think Baldoni's team might deserve a punishment for crossing the line. Why? Because in their view, this wasn't just a bad faith request. It was targeted harassment, an attempt to intimidate and control the narrative by dragging Swift into something she clearly had no business being part of. And once that word, harassment, hits a judge's desk, the case changes. Now it's not just about who's right or wrong. It's about whether the court itself is—
I want to do quickly a fast one, which is the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni case, which is being handled for Baldoni by our friend Brian Friedman. And he has just dropped a subpoena on Taylor Swift.
is being used as a weapon. And if that's proven true, things could go south for Baldoni. Fast. Just when the courtroom seemed to settle into a battle of legal briefs and procedural motions, Justin Baldoni's team dropped a bomb. And this one wasn't subtle. In a fiery follow-up filing, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, introduced what he called a key justification for pulling Taylor Swift into the case. It centered around a text thread, one involving Swift, and a threat that, if true, could change everything. According to Friedman, an anonymous source claimed that Blake Lively's lawyer made a behind-the-scenes threat to Taylor Swift's legal team. The alleged message? If Swift didn't publicly support Blake Lively during the lawsuit, private text between them could be leaked. Let that sink in. This wasn't just a vague claim of influence or media manipulation anymore. This was being framed as witness intimidation, suggesting someone tried to use the threat of a celebrity leak to force Taylor into the spotlight. Friedman wrote that the messages could prove Lively's camp engaged in extortionate tactics, and that these communications were central to understanding how Baldoni was allegedly pressured, manipulated, and publicly discredited. He insisted this wasn't a smear tactic, it was legitimate, narrowly tailored discovery aimed at exposing the truth. But Blake Lively's camp wasn't having it. Her attorney, Michael Gottlieb, blasted the claims in a public statement that landed with the same weight as a court filing. He called the accusations categorical.
She was alleged to have been at this meeting at Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' New York City penthouse, where they discussed a scene that Blake had rewritten. Justin has said that the meeting got very heated and that he felt ambushed because Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds, was there.
Categorically false, and slammed the narrative as a desperate attempt to muddy the waters. And he didn't stop there. Gottlieb accused Baldoni's team of launching a coordinated PR stunt, claiming they were firing off explosive allegations without evidence just to intimidate Blake and manipulate the press. Meanwhile, online, fans were split. Some Swifties demanded proof. Others were furious that Taylor was being used like a pawn. Blake's supporters called the leak claim a last-ditch smokescreen, and gossip blogs had a field day with headlines like, "Taylor threats in the group chat that could rock Hollywood." But here's the big question. Even if the threat never actually happened, does Baldoni believe it did? And is that belief enough for a judge to give him the green light to keep digging? Because if the court thinks he's chasing ghosts, this whole subpoena could collapse. But if there's even a sliver of credibility, Baldoni might have just cracked open a door to one of the most private celebrity text circles in the industry. So let's talk about the phrase that could derail this entire subpoena: abuse of process. It sounds like legal jargon, but in the courtroom, it's a serious accusation. When someone says you're abusing the process, they're not just claiming you're wrong. They're saying you're using the justice system for the wrong reasons. Not to uncover truth, not to seek fairness, but to punish, harass, or make a spectacle. And in this case,
the fact that she's Taylor Swift doesn't allow her to be treated any differently from somebody who is named Barbara or Taylor Smith instead of Taylor Swift.
That's exactly what Taylor Swift's legal team is arguing. Let's break it down. Under U.S. federal law, a subpoena has to meet two basic standards. It has to be relevant to the case. It has to avoid creating undue burden on the person or party it targets, especially if that party is not directly involved in the litigation. Venable LLP says Baldoni's subpoena fails both tests. They claim Taylor's involvement was so minor, just licensing one track, that demanding private messages, emails, and communications from her lawyers is absurd. They also argue that dragging Taylor Swift into this is clearly meant to pressure, not investigate, because even the hint that her name is in discovery can cause a media firestorm, and Baldoni's camp knows that. Now here's where it gets real. If the judge agrees this is an abuse of process, he doesn't just toss out the subpoena, he could go further. The court has several options: sanctions, fines against Baldoni's legal team, protective orders, blocking similar subpoenas in the future, limitations on discovery, making it harder for Baldoni to expand his evidence pool moving forward. And that's not just courtroom drama, it's a major blow to Baldoni's $400 million defamation case. Why? Because if the court starts questioning his legal tactics, it casts a shadow over everything else he's claimed. On the flip side, if the judge says the subpoena is valid, even in part, it gives Baldoni leverage. It signals to the media, the jury, and Blake's camp that there might be more going on behind closed doors. So this isn't just a paperwork battle, it's about how far someone can go in the name of discovery and whether
a Blake Lively lawsuit shocker, as Justin Baldoni's team gets shot down today over their claims she tried to extort Taylor Swift.
Are you responsible for getting that Taylor song in the trailer?
I mean, you know.
Baldoni's attorney is claiming that Blake Lively wanted Taylor Swift to delete all their text messages.
Celebrity status gives you extra protection or makes you an easier target. It didn't take long for the internet to explode. The moment Taylor Swift's name appeared in legal filings tied to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's courtroom battle, Protect Taylor started trending worldwide. Swifties weren't just angry, they were furious. thousands of fans flooded X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, calling out Baldoni for what they saw as a blatant attempt to drag Taylor into something she clearly had no part in. Posts accused him of clout chasing, weaponizing her name, and turning the courtroom into a press tour. Some fans even started tagging Baldoni's film pages with snake emojis, Swift-style backlash at its finest. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's fanbase rallied behind her. Supporters pointed to the subpoena as yet another intimidation tactic, saying it was a classic example of punishing women who speak out. The vibe across social media, this wasn't just legal strategy, it was character assassination. And then came the gossip blogs. Page 6, Reality Tea, Du Moi, they all jumped on the story. Headlines like Taylor Swift subpoenaed, inside the Baldoni-Lively war spiraling out of control, began circulating like wildfire. Speculation ran rampant about what Taylor's texts might say, whether Ryan Reynolds would be pulled in next, and how the Eras Tour PR team would handle the storm. Even mainstream outlets like The Hollywood Reporter and Variety started analyzing the case, not from a legal angle, but from a branding perspective. One analyst warned, if Baldoni loses the narrative here, he risks becoming the face of the guy who tried to intimidate Taylor Swift, and that's a PR hole you don't climb out of. Brand strategists also weighed in, noting the bizarre timing. Taylor is at the peak of her global dominance. Lively is set to star in multiple major projects. And Baldoni, he's got a reputation for being one of Hollywood's nice guys. That image is now hanging by a thread. And yet, despite all the chaos, there's one undeniable truth. Controversy drives clicks. Pre-sales for Lively's next movie have reportedly jumped. Taylor's streams saw a brief spike the week the story broke. And Baldoni's name? It's everywhere. But visibility doesn't always equal victory, especially when you're fighting in two courts at once, the courtroom and the court of public opinion. Now, all eyes are on the judge. There are 3 ways this could go. The court could quash the subpoena entirely, siding with Taylor's team and possibly even sanctioning Baldoni for misusing the system. That would be a massive blow, not just to his credibility, but to the strength of his entire $400 million countersuit. Or the judge could narrow the request, allowing only limited discovery. It's not a total win for either side, but it keeps the door cracked open just enough to maintain the pressure. And then there's the wild card. The subpoena is allowed to proceed fully. That means Taylor's law firm might actually have to turn over internal communications, putting Swift's name back into the spotlight with zero control over the narrative. No matter what happens, this case has already redefined what it means to be a non-party in Hollywood litigation. When subpoenas start targeting your group chat, it's no longer about justice, it's about power. So the question now is simple. Will the judge shut it all down, or set a precedent that could change celebrity lawsuits forever? Stay tuned, because whatever happens next, it won't stay quiet for long.